So the newspaper article that you just saw there is basically saying that JC is now a terrorist. He's been now labeled by UNATCO and everything else as a terrorist. And they used my real name, which I put in the very beginning of this game as Pimperville 2. My code name is JC Denton. We are now in Hong Kong, and this is the door we just left out of that hangar that we flew into just a second ago. And Jock came over my info link and said, we only have 12 hours left to save Paul. Now, that's not game hours. It's just kind of an arbitrary kind of figure at this point. But Daedalus says, after Jock comes on, he says, we cannot fail. So we end up here in Hong Kong in the market district, and now we are tasked with finding Tracer Tong. There's a clear difference in the voice acting in this area too in Hong Kong. I don't know if they just kind of ran out of money at this point, but it's noticeably very, very bad. So here we see Versalife. This is actually the company, if you remember, that is manufacturing the vaccine for the Great Death, which is the vaccine is called Ambrosia. Now, we don't know, since this is in Hong Kong, and I haven't been in this building at this point, but we don't know at this point, is this just a corporate, headquarters? Is it just a corporate office? What is this place, basically? We don't know yet.
You're next to the compound Paul used to visit, but I don't know who it belongs to. I think I'm clear now. Good thing the NSA invested in stealth technology.
Here we just arrived near the Luminous Path compound. We don't know exactly what that means at this point. We don't know, we've seen somebody called the Red Arrow. We're starting to kind of get a little sense of maybe a little bit of the story here.
What?
I'm looking for someone called Tracer Tong. Heard the name?
I know you. I know who you are.
Yeah?
You work for the Luminous Path. You should be dead now. But you left Hong Kong just in time.
You have me confused with someone else.
No, it was you. Miss Chow told us. You are the American who helped them steal the sword.
Really,
You cannot stop the Red Arrow. They will control China as they control Hong Kong very soon.
So here we are introduced to a character called Margaret Chow, Mrs. Chow, and she is basically saying that we, meaning J.C. Denton, is responsible for the stealing of some sacred type of sword, from what this drunk guy said. Now, we haven't really met Margaret Chow. We don't know really a whole lot about her at this stage, so you can see JC is just as confused basically as we are, like, I don't know what you're talking about. So if we come over here, we see this is the compound that Jock was talking about that Paul possibly used to visit. And we can see the outline here. It just says Triad Leader.
My brother's name is Paul Denton. I heard that he was a frequent visitor to this compound. Do you know him?
The Luminous Path is close to Guilos.
Paul is no friend of the West.
My name is Gordon Quick. I know your brother, but you are not him. They say you are loyal to UNATCO.
I was, before Paul showed up in New York. A day later, I was helping the NSF.
You want me to take your word? You are in Hong Kong now, and we are businessmen. Paul earned our trust by working with us.
I don't have time for games.
No games. We would like another ally like Paul. The Triads are at war, thanks to a woman named Maggie Chow. A sword was stolen from the Red Arrow Triad, and Miss Chow started the war by blaming us, the Luminous Path.
Why is one sword so important?
It is an extraordinary sword called the Dragon's Tooth. Nanotechnology developed by the Red Arrows for Merida before he was murdered. We know that Chow is a liar, but we have no proof.
I'll go speak to her, but first I need to find a man called Tracer Tong. I need his help.
Mr. Tong deals with businessmen, not beggars or strangers who might be spies. Chow lives at 1313 Tonochi Road. Be observant. Find and examine that sword. It is the evidence we need.
I'll help you against Miss Chow, but then I'll need to see Tong, or I won't be your ally for more than about 12 hours.
So here again we see the mention of Margaret Chow. She basically has started a feud between the Illuminous Path and the Red Arrow tribe by basically blaming, one side for stealing this sacred sword called the Dragon Tooth Sword. And we now see that his name is actually Gordon Quick. And another interesting point here is that we know that Paul was probably working for this agency a lot longer than we thought, as far as being sort of this double agent type of thing, because he was able to earn their trust, and that probably didn't happen in a few days, is what I mean. So Paul has probably been working for them for quite some time.
The former Red Arrow Reader stole nanotech components from Versalife. I believe it was the corporation that had him murdered. The Dragon's Tooth is the most perfect blade possible in a non-eutactic solid. It would have given the Red Arrow an enormous advantage. All contests between the Triads are decided with the ancient art of fighting. The structure of the blade was maintained by a coating of nanoscale wetting devices, very sharp. We have begun work on our own sword, but progress is slow. I find it suspicious that Magi Chao came to power precisely when the former Red Arrow Reader was murdered. The sword has killed more men as an argument than it ever did as a weapon. Keep your word. Go to Magi Chao. Find out the truth.
So here we get a little more background on that. We find out that the sword was actually made from stolen parts at Versalife of nano-augmented kind of pieces. Then we hear a little more about this Maggie Chow and how she mysteriously rose to power after the previous leader was just basically murdered or, fell dead. And so there's a lot of mysterious kind of things going on with these groups as of right now. So we see it kind of a fight going on right here between some guys. And if we look, we see Luminous Path Triad and Red Arrow Triad. So it seems that the Triads are now split between two different factions.
Not much activity down here.
Activity? What kind of activity?
Anything. The canal's dead.
They've added a section for nighttime. Nevertheless, there's traffic, even when you don't see it.
You mean heroin?
Illegal products, of course, but you find everything in the canals. Things that have been lost. Things people want to forget. Last month, he was the leader of the Red Arrow. He was floating near my house.
You saw the body?
My name is in the paper. I saw the cut across his neck. They are right. It was colorized.
It was what?
Colorized. The scientific terminology. Someone cut him, but it was a weapon that cannot be explained with the current technology.
What else do you find? Do you sell it?
Are you? Are you a tourist?
Just curious. I hear the Triads control all of the smuggling in Hong Kong.
Yes, the Triads do it. I am the simple merchant. I receive only fruits and vegetables.
By sampan? But you said...
Yes, fresh, from my grocery store in the market.
Right. I will have to stop by and take a look sometime.
My store is now open in the evening. Come in the morning. We have fresh new shipment of durian.
So he says something very interesting. He says that the Red Leader, the previous one, his neck was cauterized when he found it in the canal, and it cannot be explained with current technology. Now, if we remember from that Triad leader, Gordon Quick, that we just spoke to, we understand that the Dragon Tooth Sword is made of these nanite augmentation pieces. So we can kind of use a little bit of deductive reasoning to kind of maybe tie together that the Dragon Tooth was used to kill, and now they're trying to pin that on the Luminous Path.
You are an unfamiliar face on Tonochi Road.
I'm here on business from Gordon Quick.
You are here to speak to Miss Chow, perhaps. Half a block down on the left.
Thank you.
The woman is a snake. Believe nothing she says. I myself have been watching Miss Chow. She just met with Max Chen, leader of the Red Arrow.
So here the Luminous Path guy says you're on your way. If you want to meet with Margaret Chow, she's down the hall, or down the alley here to the left. But believe nothing that she says.
I take care of you. Special price.
Oh, thank
Paul
you.
Denton, I have the blueprints. I must warn you, Oh,
Warn me about what?
I have made a mistake.
Paul's my brother. What's the problem?
No, I have made a mistake.
So here we have a guy that has mistaken us for Paul Denton, and he has the blueprints for, what appears to be Versalife's office there that we saw earlier.
No, I am sorry.
But once he realized that it wasn't me, he wants nothing to do with me. And then we can have the lady of the evening here.
Romantic. A boat? Yes?
Yes.
Many bargains at Old China Hand. Everything 8 credits.
Heard the name Tracer Tong?
Tong, yes. Friend of Luminous Path Triad. And by extension, enemy of the Red Air.
What's his reputation among the locals?
Sure, by fair. Very well connected. You want to buy? Biomechanical augmentation?
Just curious. You know of a Maggie Chow?
Maggie Chow, a bad character. Before she was an actress. Now she's everywhere in Hong Kong politics. They say that she's a spy.
Who does she spy for?
No one knows. Somebody paid her a lot of money once. And one of the Red Airs ended up floating in a canal. Dangerous to talk about.
Kind of find it funny that this black guy has a Chinese accent, but...
You buy in Wen Chai, you pay 12. Here, 8.
Is there a lot of crime in Hong Kong?
Much more than before, yes. Now it's very easy for the smugglers.
What kind of smugglers?
Slaves, heroin, biotech.
Is there really a slave trade?
Oh, sure. There's a lucky money underneath Wen Chai, the Red Air headquarters. Of their girls, they are kidnapped in Thailand or the Philippines. Not a pretty business.
Here we see a little bit of what he alludes to as human trafficking by the Red Arrow portion of the Triad gang, and that's kind of how they're making their money, and that's underneath the Lucky Money Club, which we'll actually go to later. Now he expands upon Margaret Chow. He said that she was a former actress. Now she is a spy, but he doesn't know who it's for. But she recently came into a lot of money, as in she's been paid to do something. Here we can see in the back of this place that we just were at, they serve lovely pigeon food, it looks like. So I wouldn't eat anything here. So here is our actual mission, if you will, and this is 1313 Queen's Tower. This is where that Maggie or Margaret Chow actually lives.
Welcome to Queen's Tower.
So here, if we go into this bulletin right here, it says Miss Chow will grant you access to the penthouse via her private elevator. So I took the broken elevator to the left instead of the penthouse one, and we ended up seeing this bum here.
You have 20 credits, mister.
What for?
I will be honest. It is crash. A big crash. I just need a little for the pain.
A forgotten virtue like honesty is worth at least 20 credits.
You're so kind.
It was nothing.
You're looking for Maggie Chow.
Why? You know something?
She lives upstairs, but don't come in this way. Her guards are the only ones who use the gate. They don't like people snooping around.
Thanks for the tip.
Thank you again.
So you can see there her guards actually use this, and she doesn't like people snooping around. So it's very, very interesting to see that from the junkie. So at this point, we'll use the penthouse elevator and go up to Maggie Chow's actual apartment here.
I'm looking for Maggie Chow.
You must be Mr. Denton. Miss Chow had been expecting you. She is waiting in the living room. Please follow me.
So here we see Margaret Chow down here, and if you remember from the very opening scene of this game, she was actually in the very corner on one of the scenes. So it's very, very interesting that you see her. So you're starting to think, does she have a connection to Bob Page, to Walter Simons? You know, a lot of this is starting to go through our heads.
Mother Chow, Mr. J.C. Denton.
In the flesh. As dark and serious as his brother.
You know who I am. And Paul? You know my brother?
Intimately. Call me Maggie.
Paul never mentioned you.
That is why he is still alive. He can keep a secret even from his own brother.
But why?
Paul told you about Majestic 12, correct? The conspiracy behind UNATCO?
Just the name.
Majestic 12 sent Paul to murder the former Red Arrow leader. And me too.
And he double-crossed them?
Rest to say, I persuaded him to join our side.
What does Majestic 12 want with the Red Arrow?
We are winning the Triad War against Majestic 12's ally, the Luminous Path. We were developing a new technology. You might have heard about a sword.
The Dragon's Tooth, right?
The Triads settle disputes in contests of skill, which includes the crafting of weapons. The Dragon's Tooth would have made us unstoppable.
So Majestic 12. They're trying to tip the balance, give the Luminous Path a technological advantage.
Exactly. I tried to warn the people of the danger. And the Luminous Path calls me a liar. The police have all the evidence they need to settle this, locked up in the station at the Wanchai Market, but they will not act. Go and see. I know the code to their vault. 87342.
It's only fair to tell you that I spoke with Gordon Quick before coming here. I thought he was a friend of my brother's. I agreed to visit you and learn the truth of the situation.
Yes, you were seen. The new Red Arrow leader is Max Chen, and you don't have to go to the Lucky Money for him to know your activities. Now tell me about Paul. Why did he not return?
Paul's on his way to Hong Kong. I don't know when he will arrive.
Then you must think for yourself. In Hong Kong, the truth is seldom kept in plain sight.
We have many prize Buddhas, you will observe.
From up here, the city is scenery, a mountain that never changes. But everywhere the sands are shifting. We cannot know who to trust. The police, even our own families.
I could look around, try to learn something about the Luminous Path.
All the necessary evidence is at the police station in Wanchai Market. If only the police would act.
The floor coverings were made by hand in Tibet.
The Luminous Path are easy prey. All Majestic 12 must do is wave some money under their noses. We must expose the conspiracy behind the Luminous Path. Then they will fall apart from the inside.
Take a look around.
When your brother arrives, please tell him I have an important matter to discuss.
So it's very interesting what she has came and basically talked about. She openly mentions Majestic 12, so she knows who they are, and she's telling us that there is proof in the police locker. Now, something very interesting is like JC was like, wait a minute, Paul never told me that he knew you, and this Margaret Chow's making it seem like Paul and her were actually intimate in a relationship. And JC's like, I don't know if I'm buying that. Now you can see the maid is like literally following my every move.
As you will observe.
And it's very, very suspicious.
Get away from there.
So just to let you know, this maid ends up like, and you can see now it says May Snug, but she, when I went into this room for some reason, was like, you need to get out, you need to not do that, and being very, very suspicious for being a maid. And then she actually opens fire on me. Now at this point, I'm going to hack this security terminal. And you can actually see the Majestic 12 net that we're on, and once again, dataless. So something's not right here. I don't feel like Margaret Chow is being completely truthful with us. And you can see and hear the surveillance. There's a lot of weird things in her apartment. So we're going to go check those out right now. So I hit this paper lantern, and a secret passage actually has came open right in here in her apartment. So this is a very, very interesting kind of room in her apartment here.
Greetings, J.C. Denton. I have been observing you through this fascinating device in your skull. You have found the proof we needed. The Dragon's Tooth sword. There, inside the glass case. If you wish to be my ally, you will retrieve the sword and await my instructions.
So Tracer Tong has just notified us, and it looks like Margaret Chow has stolen the sword and probably hid it and created this whole ruse to get the Triads to fight. And just a little spoiler. Now, there's two routes you could have went. Now, I could have went to the police station, got the evidence, and when I came back, her guards are actually Majestic 12. So the whole thing that Margaret Chow did was actually a ruse. She's actually working for the Majestic 12 organization. And here's actually the proof that she took it and is creating a kind of rift between the Triads.
Ms. Chow, we are reassigning you temporarily. Put the long-term agenda on hold until Versalife has met its deadline. It will be months and probably years before the Red Arrow can influence Beijing, whereas, well, I'm sure you heard about my appointment. We are in position to make a grab for Washington. We can't let this one slip through our fingers. Make sure the process stays on schedule.
So there, when I hit this button, Walter Simons comes on, and he's gotten promoted to FEMA, and they're looking to basically take over Washington. So you can kind of see now that Margaret Cho is actually a pretty bad person, and she was kind of giving away some information. It's kind of a counterintelligence tactic, but knowing that she's a spy, she was actually trying to get us to divulge information by giving us little trigger words like Majestic 12 and Paul, and seeming like she knew all that kind of stuff. So here we see another report, and she even talks about foreigners and a black helicopter coming down in this email. Here's another one. Now, the Angel OA and things like that that Walter Simons was talking about was here. And here we see a mention of Agent Gunther Herman. And then, of course, from Walter Simons, we see about the Agent Denton, that I am here in Hong Kong, and we need to know about that kind of stuff. So it's very, very interesting.
Good. Now take the sword to Max Chin at the Lucky Money Club. If you can make peace among the triads, then perhaps I can help you in your difficulties.
So you can see now that Tracer Tong is wanting us to have the triads not fight anymore, because there was a huge fight basically over this sword right here. And we're going to go ahead and return that and make a truce, because it looks like Majestic 12 is actually wanting the triads to be at war for some reason. So this is perhaps the best weapon in the game, in my opinion. This is the Dragon Tooth Sword, and it is totally, totally awesome. And normally I don't show any gameplay, but I am actually going to show you this sword in action real quick. It has unlimited ammo. It really doesn't have an ammo, I guess, per se. It's like an energy sword. But here we can actually see we're still in Margaret Cho's apartment, and there are Majestic 12 troops inside of her apartment. So without a doubt, if there was any still left in our mind, she is definitely not on our side. Our crosshairs are red, you know, and everything like that. But here we go.
Gotcha.
So here we are in a secret area of this game. This is actually Jock's apartment, and we actually figured that out. We just kind of crashed through this window over here. But there's a couple little clues that kind of tell us that, and one of it is we find Jock's pistol. And if we go over to here on his actual computer, we see some very, very big kind of emails as far as a lot of lore within them. And so here Paul is basically saying, hey, my brother may be able to help, you know, even though he works for UNATCO. Here we see a thing from Tracer Tong about surveillance. And this is a very, very interesting one. Daedalus has actually emailed Jock directly talking about how Paul needs us, you know, and things like that. So there's some very, very interesting aspects of that email. So here we are about to enter the Lucky Money Club and talk to Max Chen and basically get the triads to start working together, because they're basically split down the middle between the Red Arrow and the Luminous Path, and Tracer Tong has basically said you need to go talk to the leader about this. So now that we are inside of the Lucky Money Club, we are tasked with finding Max Chen.
Good evening.
Hello there. Do you know a man named Max Chen?
Of course I know Max, a terrific fellow.
Do you know where I can find him?
In the back room. He runs the whole Red Arrow from here. Hey, you're not with the police, are you?
I'll tell you later.
And next time,
Hello.
JC, just say, no, you're not with the police.
I've never seen so many troopers. They must be close to a breakthrough.
But which division?
Maybe all of them. Something fundamental. I saw guards in biotech, too.
I think it's just the UC.
They've had that for weeks.
But word has gotten out. Every engineer on the planet.
Versalife already has the best security in the industry.
Even my game programmer friend in Texas offered me 1 million credits for 1 hour on the UC. Wanted to make the game of life with buckyballs. Joking, of course.
I don't like being in the dark.
What do you mean?
Everything's so compartmentalized.
A pain, I know. But all it takes is one leak to the net, and there goes our work into the public domain.
It's more like the way you'd organize a prison camp than a laboratory.
Let's not get melodramatic.
I've spent months making this rotor for sorting calcium ions, and I don't even know what it's for.
Kaczynski was right about the division of labor. I'll give him that much. Want another drink?
Who puts the pieces together?
Someone who makes a lot more money than we do.
I think management is involved in something criminal.
I don't know if you've seen that.
Really? Why the codes? All the procedures? Why'd the data entry people disappear today? What did the company have them doing?
That's outside your department.
I want to know. What do they do all day and all night down on level 2?
I don't think I can take part in this conversation.
Mind if I ask what you were talking about?
You with the company?
It just sounded interesting. Troops. At a corporation?
Not your affair. Please do not intrude.
So, JC, next time you're in this situation, just say you're with Versalife. But we see some very, very interesting things coming from this conversation. One, that there's something called a UC, and they're in the final, stages of that, I guess. But that's short for the Universal Constructor, which we'll find out more about later. And she's kind of mentioning, Versalife's kind of not what it seems, I guess. And she's an employee. She's like, it's very compartmentalized. Now, that's a very interesting word. And we normally see that associated with very, very top secret projects such as the Manhattan Project and things like that. So you wouldn't expect to see that from a pharmaceutical company. You're more thinking military or on a government scale. And she also mentioned something, Versalife is very criminal in their way of dealing with things. And that's when this guy over here just shuts down. So it's very, very interesting. And we also hear mentions of like a level 2. So it's very, very interesting to see some of the cloak and shadow type of stuff that's going on.
I'm looking for Max Chen.
Is that so? What is it about?
Maggie Chow sent me.
Oh, the beautiful Miss Maggie. You'll find the door just behind me.
Can I ask you something?
What do you want to know?
Despite all I've read about the triads, I wasn't prepared to see them operating in the open, on the streets, and wearing uniforms. Doesn't the Chinese government care?
The Chinese leave Hong Kong alone. They barricade the roads to control trade to the mainland, but they know how business is done.
I would think the secret smuggling operations of the triads would disturb the Chinese government.
Maybe the Luminous Path knows that the Red Arrow are business owners, entrepreneurs, community leaders, and that they protect the city from outside influences.
You said outside influences. What does China fear?
China is the last sovereign country in the world. Authoritarian but willing, unlike UN-governed countries, to give its people the freedom to do what they want.
As long as they don't break the law.
Listen to me. This is real freedom. Freedom to own property, make a profit, make your life. The West, so afraid of strong government, now has no government, only financial power.
Our governments have limited power by design.
Rhetoric? And you believe it? Don't you know where these slogans come from?
I give up.
Well-paid researchers. How do you say it? Think tanks? Funded by big businesses. What is that? A think tank?
Hardly as sinister as a dictator, like China's premier.
It's privately funded propaganda. The Trilateral Commission in the United States, for instance.
The separation of powers acknowledges the petty ambitions of individuals. That's its strength.
A system organized around the weakest qualities of individuals will produce the same qualities in its leaders.
Perhaps certain qualities are an inseparable part of human nature.
The mark of the educated man is the suppression of these qualities in favor of better ones. The same is true of civilization.
So here we are in the back room where the bartender told us to go to meet Max Chen. And we can see some of the Red Arrow guys, and we can also see that this was a two-way mirror before when we were looking at it from the other side.
Excuse me, sir. This room is off limits to club patrons. I suggest you leave.
It's okay. I'm here to see Max Chen. He'll expect me.
An American. I hope he likes what you have to say. Isaac.
So this is what appears to be the leader of the Red Arrow.
Present yourself to the Dragon Head.
You must be Max Chen.
So?
I have found something in Miss Chow's apartment that might interest you.
Is that so?
The sword was never destroyed. It was stolen, and she is the one who stole it.
Preposterous.
I have it right here.
But Miss Chow?
She works for a group called Majestic 12. She's using you and the Red Arrow for her own ends.
No, you must be mistaken.
Think about it. She murders your predecessor, hides the sword, pushes the Red Arrow into the war with the Luminous Path, and then, what next? The Triads are weakened and an outside group seizes power. Sound far-fetched?
Oh, there must be an explanation.
Perhaps you should meet with the leaders of the Luminous Path.
Perhaps. For now, take them this message. I will stop hostilities until I have completed an investigation.
Boss.
What is it?
Marty at the door said we have trouble. Soldiers coming in. She said that was some kind of mechs.
MJ-12 troops. They must have followed me.
So this is the first time we're going to be able to see the commando units. As we can see here, they're very heavily armored. They actually have guns where their arms are. Very, very nasty type of guys.
You led them here. You should have been more careful.
You're acting like a fool.
And here we see some things about the police headquarters and the Luminous Path and things like that. A little bit more of a background there, and I'll leave that up in case you want to read it. So our task now is to go back to Tracer Tong, let him know that we have talked to Max Chen, and hopefully we have basically been able to broker a truce between the Red Arrow and Luminous Path, especially now that we found out that Maggie Chow was responsible, and Max Chen is being like, oh my gosh, she actually did that on purpose. So
she said no.
Impossible.
She said she has made other arrangements.
The Red Arrow?
She was very rude.
You know what to do.
Yes, sir.
Don't waste any time.
So this little kid was, I guess, tasked to go to this newspaper stand over in this area and get the girl that owns the store to pay for protection every month. It's just this little kid with sunglasses, which I find very, very funny. Kind of a little badass, I guess. So here we are back at the Triad compound, and this is actually the Luminous Path group. And Tracer Tong is actually inside, so we need to come back and say that we were able to broker the truce between the Red Arrow and the Luminous Path groups.
You were right. Maggie Chow is a con artist.
You have proof?
Yes, I found the sword in her apartment.
Good. Inform the Red Arrow Dragon Head. Then we will see who is the real traitor.
I've already been to the Lucky Money. Max Chen has declared a truce between the Red Arrow and the Luminous Path.
A truce? Are you certain?
Majestic 12 attacked the club. I think he would consider forming an alliance.
Mr. Denton, you are the man I hoped you were. Tracer Tong is inside, in his laboratory below the compound. The door is in our sparring room. He will know what to do next. To enter our compound, use the code 1997.
So here's a little journal from Gordon Quick that basically says there's been so much fighting, basically just over a sword. So this is a very interesting journal, and it goes into UNATCO headquarters in New York, and there's actually questions about the link between the two, meaning UNATCO and MJ12. And earlier, if you remember, if we were in the MJ12 compound and we saw Project Dybbuk. So this is going a little bit more into that and kind of going over the conspiracy behind that as well. Kind of interesting. So here we have finally met Tracer Tong in the basement of the headquarters of Luminous Path here.
Mr. Tong, you know my brother Paul Denton.
Yes, a reliable man. So your kill switch has been activated.
I feel fine, but it's been over 16 hours.
See how easily our technologies turn on us? The more power you think you have, the more quickly it slips from your hands.
Can you do something about it?
That will depend. You, like your brother, are an extraordinary piece of technology. I never pass up the chance to try a new blade. But I fear at the crucial moment I may lift up my arm to strike and you will twist free of my grasp.
In other words, I'll owe you a favor.
Indeed, as will your friend Mr. Jacobson, a man of much useful knowledge. He arrived in Hong Kong shortly after you did. I was forced to keep him in custody until I could verify his identity and his loyalties.
I assume he checked out.
I believe he is sincere. Now, go down the stairs to the operating platform, and I will examine your systems.
So we're about to have our kill switch removed in this area here, and Tracer Tong apparently knows how to do it, and that there he is up there. Apparently we stand on this glowing orb. So apparently when you have these red glowing things around you, that kills the kill switch. In here we can actually see that Alex Jacobson did come with us, so let's go ahead and talk to him really quick.
You took a big risk following me here. Thanks.
When you believe in something, you've just got to do it.
How'd you find Tong so quickly?
Turns out I knew him all along. ttundernetnet.0924.243.886. I posted a message to the board and he contacted me himself.
Any news from Jaime?
No sign of him yet. I hope he made it.
Yeah, me too. Did you ever dig up anything about this Daedalus character? I'm still hearing from him.
Actually, I did, sort of. Crypto says Daedalus was supposedly a government AI project, also known as Echelon 4.
Supposedly?
I'm getting this from anonymous crypto boards. Daedalus was supposed to beat the old content recognition problem in surveillance. It was a program that could search all the terabytes of intercepted messages for subversive content.
So, what happened?
Never panned out as far as I know. The problem was just too hard. They blew through a lot of taxpayer money, but finally had to scrap the whole project.
So the thing that's talking in my head is, what, resurrected AI?
I wish I knew.
So here we see a very interesting development in Daedalus, that it was a scrapped project known as Echelon 4, and we're kind of led to believe that it's a resurrected AI at this point. So we go back in here and talk to Tong after we've had our kill switch here removed.
That's it?
A simple switch, as they call it.
Have you heard from Paul?
On his way, according to smuggler in New York. He will be fine. Meanwhile, we still face the likelihood of a triad war here in Hong Kong.
Quick and Chen declared a truce just a few minutes ago.
A good bit of diplomacy, I admit, but it won't hold. Not with the sword left to be fought over.
I think they'll be slow to anger with Maggie Chow out of the picture.
No. In their system, the sword is a doomsday weapon, a temptation. We must recover the Raman coding from Versalife and make it available to both triads.
So that's all you expect in the way of a favor? A little corporate espionage?
The first of many favors. Remember, I saved your life. Now pay attention. The Versalife elevator north of the market will require an employee number. Try 06288. Once inside, find Mr. Hundley, the shift supervisor. He can be persuaded to give you access to the labs.
Hundley.
You will find him receptive. He is the corrupt official who sold the Red Arrow the technology to begin with.
I'll find the Raman coding, but I'm not your henchman. I'll help you as long as we have a mutual interest.
If you choose to fight Majestic 12, you will need an ally. We will have a mutual interest for some time. In fact, I took the liberty of setting up a computer account for you. Login JC Denton. Password Sanctuary. Feel free to use the machine in my office.
So you can see our next task is actually to go into Versalife and get the Dragon Tooth nanotechnology so it is available to both triads. So here we see another message from Daedalus here, and it's about our objectives. We must not fail, and we need to get the nanotechnology for the virus. So that's very interesting. I'll leave that up for just another second if you want to read that. And then we get an email from Carter back in the armory, and it says he got fired. So our objective now is to go into Versalife and basically steal some technology and kind of see what's going on in there. So that'll be our next task. So here we are in the Versalife building, and it's actually right next to the Lucky Money Club that we passed by before. And when we first come down this elevator, it actually prompts us and tells us that we're in a data processing center. So we now kind of know at least a little bit about what this building is about, at least on the surface, right? I do want to apologize. I had some issues with my Elgato here, and we were able to track them down and figure out what it was. It was actually the stream command. So I'm going to go without the webcam this time, basically a trade-off for better audio.
Welcome to Versalife. We make tomorrow look like yesterday. How can I help you?
I'm looking for Mr. Hundley.
He's upstairs making his rounds. Look for a man in a black suit.
Thank you.
So at this point we have actually three choices to get down into the R&D, the research and development portion of this building, because Tracer Tong wants us to get the Raman coding for the Dragon Tooth. So there's three ways, and the easiest and cheapest, I guess, is cheapest meaning credits, is to go ahead and hack one of these computers here in this cube farm. And we see here we get an Able Temp security pass. If we click on that, we see code, and then it gives us this little code here, and that will actually get us down to the elevator that we need to go to. I also kind of want to show this because he mentioned JC when he first talks to the receptionist there. He says, I need to speak to Hundley. And if you see that, we kind of see some negative attitudes and things like that. So I'll leave that up if you want to read that there.
So much for the schedule, right, mate?
The schedule? Yeah, sure.
It's swell to miss a day of work, but they bloody hell better push back the delivery. I know I won't be done.
They'll understand.
It lays the superfreighters on our way to America. No more special agents nosing about up here.
Special agents?
You know, the ones in the suits with grey skin. Eyes tattooed on the backs of their necks. I'd sure like to know what was in those tanks to make them so uptight.
So here we see a very, very interesting claim by this guy that special agents are walking around. We see something about a freighter going to America. And then his special agent description is that of gray skin and tattoos on the back of their eye. Or on the back of their neck, excuse me. Tattoos of an eye on the back of their neck. But what we see, and we've seen this before, is the minute he's describing what appears to be the Men in Black agents. And you're thinking, why are they in a pharmaceutical company?
Mr. Hundley, shift supervisor. Who might you be?
I'm contracting this month. Quite a facility you have here.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, we're pretty proud of the work we're doing.
Any chance I could get a tour of the labs?
Oh, no, I'm afraid not. Trade secrets and all that.
I'll make it worth your while.
To the tune of what? 2,000?
So we could pay him 2,000 credits. I find it odd that we don't have an option to kind of barter with him because he seems to have pulled that number out of thin air in my opinion. But we're going to go say never mind because we've already got the code that we need.
Never mind.
That's pretty much the most expensive route of the three options. And the final way to get into that building is to talk to this nervous worker here who is on the 3rd floor of this cube farm.
What?
Just looking around.
People are trying to concentrate.
They keep you up here pretty late.
That's because they don't want people looking over my shoulder.
Why not?
Huh. I guess it doesn't matter what I say anymore. It's because I falsify all the records, okay?
They probably don't want you telling people that.
So, I don't care. I figured it out today, how they do it. People with my job got the Great Death. In a couple of weeks, I could be in a camp. I could already be sick.
Why would they do that?
Whatever's in those labs, stuff goes in there. Instruments, military personnel. None of it goes on the record. Iverson had this job. That's why he got sick. Chang, Kylie, Watts. Now it's me.
I'd really like to check out those labs.
You some kind of spy or something?
Does it matter?
If I get you down there, can you do something for me?
What's that?
Hundley, kill him. I bet you could do it. You guys have ways to keep from getting caught. I can give you clearance.
So we see JC is just not very good at counterintelligence. This is kind of the 3rd example of him just saying something that probably isn't the best way to say it. So when somebody says, are you a special agent or a spy? You could just say no, JC. But I find his answer very funny. And then, of course, when we're in the Lucky Money Club, we see 2 examples. You know, one person actually asked JC if he's with the police. He says, I'll tell you later. And of course, with the Versalife employees in that club, when he's talking to them, like, do you work for the company? And he's just like, it's just like, just say yes, JC. But anyway, we see some very, very interesting things with this guy here. And I'm going to pull up this data cube while I talk about it because there's very interesting things that go along with what I'm going to talk about. But we see that this guy talks about military personnel coming and going now within the company. That is very, very strange. We already have special agents. Now we've been expanded and been told that military are coming and going inside of this, what seems to be a normal pharmaceutical company. And the second interesting thing, and I have a theory about this, he says that his predecessors, and even including him, meaning this worker over here, is actually, they've gotten sick from the Grey Death virus. I personally have a theory that Versalife is controlling their employees by purposely giving them the Grey Death virus. Now we know already up to this point that Versalife manufactures the ambrosia vaccine. So they control the supply, and if you are a good employee and you stay in line, meaning you don't leak the secrets that he's doing, like falsifying documents, they'll give you the cure. So a little theory I've got going on here, and then of course this data cube kind of talks a little bit about that as well. So at this point we type in our code here, 6512 that we were given on the hacked email, and we go in just to the right of where we were with this guy. No unauthorized personnel. So here we see Majestic 12 development program, and Pacific Rim has nothing to do with the movie, as far as I know. But very, very interesting. We would thought it was just level 2.
You the one they just cleared for level 1?
Yeah, that's me.
You are welcome to stroll around the laboratories, but respect the work that we do here. Your security pass can be canceled with no warning.
I've looked forward to this for a long time.
Security is watching through the cameras. If you cause trouble, an alarm will sound, and the guards won't wait to ask questions.
Yes, sir. I'll try not to get in anyone's way.
So a lot of very interesting things, and there is a little bit of a plot hole here. Yes, this company, they did say they were expecting American contractors coming through and doing a visit and a tour of the R&D labs. But you would think, since we're fugitives of Majestic 12 and Walter Simons and all this, you would think that these Majestic 12 agents would somehow have our face like on a bolo, be on the lookout for, you know, kind of a thing. But we'll let that go. We have been given free reign in here. Anyway, so this is the symbol of Majestic 12, the hand with the globe. And if you remember from the very beginning of this video, from the very first part of the series, we see Walter Simons and we see Bob Page actually standing here talking. And in the background, we see a Chinese woman that we did not know her name, but now we know it is Maggie Chow. Very, very interesting. So at this point, we can kind of go up here. We can talk to some of the scientists and things like that. There's really not any significant lore in that area. But this is actually really, really neat. And I am playing on the revision mod, and the guy did a very, very good job of updating these graphics. But we can kind of see the lower labs down here, and we can see the scientists, and we can see, you know, a table here of what appears to be, you know, some kind of dog-looking thing that they're doing experiments on, and kind of see some weird stuff going on down there. So I just thought that was a cool area to kind of show off. Back in here in this main room, I wanted to show the commando unit kind of in action because we saw him dead last time. But you can see his arms. He's very, very heavily shielded and things like that. And this is what he actually sounds like if I click on him.
Hear that? Nothing. Must have been a glitch.
So kind of like a RoboCop kind of thing. If we go over here, it's very, very interesting. We can actually kind of see the security keypad. And for being such a high-tech area, you'll never guess what the 2-number password is. It's 12. 12. This will lead us down to where we need to go to get the ROM encoding for Tracer Tong.
The ROM encoding should be in this wing of the laboratory.
So this is actually where we would go, but we actually have free reign at this point. So let's go ahead and go and explore. So here we see a woman in black, and if you can see, there's actually an eye tattooed on the back of her neck and the grayish skin. And I wanted to point that out again just to show that, you know, that is definitely what that is about. Here we see what looks to be like Bob Page and Maggie Chow, so let's go ahead and eavesdrop on that conversation.
The process is going smoothly then?
Better than we expected. The array of reaction modules has allowed the UC to perform multiple constructions in parallel.
Wonderful. We'll have to try that trick at Area 51.
The problem, you understand, is primarily a security concern.
Never mind that punk from UNATCO. The security here is adequate, and we have a long-term program guaranteed to make him irrelevant. We call it Icarus.
Icarus?
A sweet bit of engineering. You'll like it, but we can't talk here. Your office?
No time. Tell me on the way.
Unfortunately, that's where the conversation ends, but we hear a mention of Area 51. We hear another mention of the UC, Universal Constructor, and we hear about an Icarus, which is a new thing that Bob Page is working on. So once again, we can see the men in black, women in black agents, and we see Majestic 12 troops around here. So if we go down here, we can actually see the catwalk that we were walking upon. And we can see that this is a Karkian.
Androids. Watch the way they move.
Some interesting things about Virus and the Super Freighter. Again, I'll leave that up if you want to read that data cube. Here we can see a dead body on here. So they're doing some kind of crazy experiments. Here we see 2 more special agents. So very, very well guarded area. And what is Versalife trying to hide that you would need this type of security? And I don't know what the hell this is.
I'm afraid we don't have time for visitors right now.
This is kind of an interesting room in that we get a nano key for one, but we get Animal Carcass Gray. This is kind of interesting. This is just a little theory, but I think they named him that. If you ever watch these kind of shows about aliens, they always call them the Greys. In here we can see the raptor chickens that they were called earlier, and then a regular man, a bum who seems to be a little crazy. This is another very interesting part. If we go in here, You can see an alien in the background that's actually alive. I actually can't go in there because whatever it is in there, it's radioactive, and it'll actually hurt my health. But so here we can kind of see different types of emails, and I'll leave these up for just a second. We see something about virus shipment in there, a little more about the Series P agents. I kind of have to hurry up because my, as you can see, my hacking meter. We see something about Max Chen. This is actually Maggie Chow's Operation Central and Triad Control. So I'm rehacking this right now to give us a fresh look at that. But if we look at Maggie Chow's again, and I was kind of going through that kind of fast, and I apologize, but this is a big one, the Triad Control. This we actually learn about Tracer Tong. We actually see Jock's stolen helicopter. So this is a very, very important one. And I'll leave these up just a second. JC Denton we see as a rogue operative. And then, of course, Max Chen of the Red Arrow. If we go over here, we see the Greys. This is the project on that. Upgraded commando specs. And the final email we have, I had to unfortunately hack this like 3 times because of how fast it goes. But we see M. Bates. Once again, we see something about the NEB trials. And we also see about the Grey project again from him, which is kind of interesting. They don't go too much into that, but it is kind of interesting to kind of read about. So here we can actually see a woman in black carrying our same exact sword, the Dragon Tooth sword. So this is definitely where it is. You see mine. Probably should put that away, but because we technically stole it from Versalife, so the fact that we're pulling it out in here is actually kind of funny. This is actually our destination here, and we are to encode the ROM signal as Tracer Tong asked us to do. As you can see, the majestic 12 symbol that I was talking about earlier. So here we see upload nanotech blade ROM. That's what Tracer Tong wants. So we go ahead and do that.
I have uploaded the component that need to complete the sword. Go to the temple next to the market. I will bring together the dragon heads for a meeting.
Did anybody else hear something?
So now we are actually fugitives of this place as well. We are actually, our crosshairs have turned to red. So as we come back upstairs from being down there, we ended up being turned on by the MJ-12 and all that kind of stuff. Surprise, surprise. We see this guy, his crosshairs are still green, so we'll go ahead and talk to this guy.
I was down in the labs. Do you know what they're doing?
Something with genetics and nanotech, that's all I know.
Take my advice and get out of here. I can't tell you any more than that.
I'm not sure why he didn't tell him any more than that, because he could have divulged all of it, but I think it's obviously best for his sake to get on out of here. So another very interesting thing is if we look at this data cube here, we can see that they were expecting a new employee, as we can see here, and they are restricted to non-sensitive kind of information. If we go in here, we can see that there is a meeting between the Luminous Path and the Red Arrow, so let's go ahead and see what kind of truce may have begun.
It is decided. There will be a truce. Let us be quiet. Agent Denton from America has retrieved the software component. Please accept our gratitude.
It is my honor.
Begin.
As the faces of a perfect blade are reflections of one another, as they join together to make a perfect edge, so we shall form one blade, not the male and female swords of Ganjiang, one which must avenge the other, but one weapon, precise in its purpose, though wielded by many arms.
And much as the steel sharpens its edge and anneals its own surfaces, let us preserve, together, the form of our traditions.
The only enduring work of man, that which is born again with the next generation.
Forever.
Forever.
Again, accept our thanks, Mr. Denton. You will have to join us for drinks at the Lucky Money later tonight. In the meantime, Mr. Tong wants to see you.
Thanks for the offer. Maybe I'll stop by.
So at this point, I am back in the Luminous Path headquarters where Tracer Tong's office is located. This is where we had our kill switch removed. And there has been a truce between the Luminous Path and the Red Arrow. They basically have said, you know, this sword brings us together. So it's very interesting. There is peace now between them. So let's go see what Tracer Tong thinks about what we did.
Peace between the Triads is now official.
Good. We begin to operate from a position of strength. We will start manufacturing the swords and distributing them to our allies.
What next? Versalife was crawling with troops. I think they were hiding more than sword technology down there.
Tell me about the labs. Paul and I concluded that Versalife does the manufacturing, while the real research takes place in North America.
Plenty of scientists. Biotech, physics, nanotech, several research divisions. It would seem we still have a mutual interest.
We know they manufacture ambrosia. If you went back and gained access to the Level 2 labs, perhaps you would find something on the Grey Death. Your brother's failure in New York has left me with nothing.
Do you think you could find a cure?
That cannot be determined until I have a schematic of the virus particle and the molecular structure of ambrosia.
I'll go back, but won't they be ready for me?
There's a back way at the north end of the Canal Road Tunnel, which is just east of the temple. I sent an agent in that way once. She turned up a key code to the Nanotech Research Wing, 55655, but no data.
Worth a try.
By the way, Versalife lost one of their R&D men in the Canal Road Tunnel collapse. A guy we think was carrying nanotech assets. He did some of the basic research that went into your implants. You might take a look, if you don't mind going for a dive.
Maybe I'll check it out.
Perhaps you can locate and destroy the manufacturing facilities as well. I will monitor your progress.
So our task now is to go back into Versalife's building in level 2. Would have been nice to hear that in the beginning when I was already there, right? But no, it's not a big deal. Basically, we're going back and we're going to figure out a little more about the R&D level 2 labs that we were basically just not privy to. We didn't have the key code for one, but we're going to go back and we're going to see if we can find some more information. So here we are in the Canal Road again in an old maintenance tunnel, and Tracer Tong seems to apparently has a way for us to get into Versalife again a second time, only this time he has a back entrance, which would have been very, very nice the first time, but I forgive him. So we go in here and we are to get a sample of the ambrosia vaccine in order for Tracer Tong so that he can basically synthesize his own cure. And when we drop in this little lake, or whatever you want to call it in here, we see that we are deep beneath the Versalife building. So I already thought we were basically in a very top secret area, but apparently there was another level.
Called a universal constructor. It is one of the only 2 devices in the world capable of producing the nanomechanical. Use the code 525.
While you're reading on this one. Look for a computer terminal somewhere in Level 2 lab. If you find it, I can upload the data I need through your infolink.
So this is actually where I think a lot of people are getting the theory that Megan Reed was the one that created this, because we are talking nanomechanical virus that was created, and Daedalus actually wants us to destroy it. So we see a lot of interesting developments in this. One, that the Grey Death virus was created, and that they're manufacturing the cure basically in the exact same place. I think the other reason why people think that Megan Reed is tied to that is simply at the end of Mankind Divided, and even in Human Revolution, we kind of see the thing that she's working with Bob Page, Versalife, and things like that. And the fact that she has a background in nanotechnology doesn't really help her case of looking like an evil person, I guess.
This storage area would be a logical place to find a stockpile of the virus. I don't know why it's so empty.
So Tracer Tong seems to think that it is very suspiciously empty in this place for being such a high profile, this universal constructor, which I'm staring at right now, and I'll show you a little bit more when I get downstairs, but the fact that it costs billions and billions of dollars and there's like nobody really here is a little suspicious to him.
Got it. Looks like you stumbled on more than the schematics. You better get out of there. More in a second.
Universal Constructor is in this facility.
So this is a better look at the Universal Constructor. It's this little blue beam basically right here. And we can kind of see, and I'll even pull up my sniper rifle here, we can actually see Maggie Chow for some reason, and she's actually in here. So let's go ahead and see what her deal is.
Bad move, Agent.
Hello, Maggie.
You are a fool to trust Tracer Tong. He will send you out to die, just like he did with your brother.
At least he doesn't pretend to be someone he's not.
You should have played along. You would have profited in ways you will never know.
You're a rotten actress.
And you're a rotten agent. You just got yourself killed. Danton!
So we can see Maggie even still, up until this time here, trying to tell us that Tracer Tong is evil, that Paul should have never trusted him, Tracer Tong is going to kill Paul. You know, a lot of just crazy, crazy type of thing. Such a simple password, in my opinion, for this billion-dollar Universal Constructor, but 525. And we can see that it'll blow up there. And these little spider things I absolutely hate actually start popping out.
Viral production has been terminated. Containment protocols have sealed off the entrance. You will have to exit through the effluent pipes in the floor. Aware of biotoxin concentrations.
Seems to be some inventory data here. Versalife has been synthesizing the Grey Death virus in great quantities. The entire stockpile has been loaded onto a superfreighter going to New York. Interesting. The previous owner of the ship was Stanton Dowd. Ever hear of the Come back to the compound. Tell you. Tracking. Talking about the molecule shape. 17 segments, 23 coupling points. Only Illuminati technicians use sleeve bearings with 34-fold and 46-fold symmetry. Multiples of 17 and 23? 17, 23? The birth of Adam Weishaupt? Not a coincidence.
So this is our first mention of the Illuminati out in the open, and Tracer Tong is kind of talking about this, Stanton Dowd. The very, very interesting thing is that this super freighter is headed towards America with the Grey Death virus. America being the last country on Earth to not fall to the Illuminati and Majestic 12 power. So it's very, very interesting that we're kind of seeing those developments through Tracer Tong. So back at Tracer Tong's compound here, we can kind of see, well, we see a couple of different things. We actually see the red arrow and the luminous path kind of getting along finally. This was never in the very beginning before we made that truce. There would never have been a red arrow in this compound. So it's very good that we made the peace. Two, we see Paul Denton is back in here, and I believe at this point we can kind of assume that his kill switch may have been deactivated by Tong as well.
Tong fix you up? Yeah, you? You cut it pretty close. I'm in pretty bad shape. Looks like I'll be living in Hong Kong for a couple of months. Will you get better? Any permanent damage? I'll recover, but not right away. You'll be on your own for a while. I hear you've already been keeping busy. Just getting to know the locals. Turns out Versalife had a Universal Constructor. They were synthesizing the virus right here. Tong told me. Not a cheap gizmo. Majestic 12 sure does a lot of R&D. Every ruler needs a power base. Without the people, well, you need something to use against them. I'm going to see what Tong has to say about the schematics I recovered. Hey, do me a favor. Get better. I'm working on it.
So obviously because we helped Paul out in his apartment, he is still here with us. If we were not to have done that, we just escaped through the window like he wanted, he would not be with us in Hong Kong right now. He really doesn't play that big of a role throughout if we keep him alive, but it is kind of cool to see him surviving.
Don't know if I care for your sense of humor.
Humor?
The Illuminati stuff. I was risking my life in there.
No joke, Mr. Denton. They're quite real. Though not as powerful as they were at the beginning of the century. I know a few of the former leaders.
Like Stanton Dowd?
Yes, plus Beth Duclair, Morgan Everett. Most of them in Paris, I understand.
What do they have to do with Majestic 12?
A question for Dowd. I will contact him in New York. Hopefully he will agree to meet you.
What about a hacker named Daedalus?
A mysterious but valuable informant. He sent me one of the codes I needed to find that superfreighter. Perhaps your friend Alex has dealt with him more than I.
A superfreighter? That's enough virus to infect a continent.
Your pilot is landing in the courtyard. Find out and see if he knows where the ship is going or how we can stop it. In any case, it is time you left Hong Kong. There is word of a UNATCO agent searching for you here. A German, they say. Augmented.
Tell your people not to tangle with him. I'll deal with him myself.
So we see a lot of interesting things, including that Herman is actually after us now, or Gunther, excuse me, and he is actually after us now, and he is in Hong Kong, guess wanting to kill us. The other really interesting thing is that JC does not believe Tracer Tong. You know, I think he thinks it's just a bunch of bullcrap in a way he's given him as far as the Illuminati. So it's very interesting to see his reaction to that. But Tracer Tong's like, no, they are real. And although they've lost a lot of power over this last century, they somehow may have a tie to Majestic 12. And he knows some of the former leaders, so we're going to actually meet up with them.
Do you have what you need to synthesize a cure?
The data you recovered should provide an answer. In time.
I also destroyed the universal constructor they were using to manufacture the virus.
A universal constructor? I should have known.
But I did it on the advice of that hacker, Daedalus. Who is he, anyway? He's more than just a hacker.
A good question. I have tried to trace his messages, but he seems to send them from separate continents, almost simultaneously.
He engineered my escape from UNATCO. Knows everything about Versalife.
A powerful man, we must assume. I don't like mysteries, but at least he appears to be on our side.
I don't like mysteries either.
So it's very interesting. We kind of have conflicting theories on who Daedalus is at this point. Tracer Tong seems to think he's an actual man, a very powerful person, and doesn't really probably want to mess with him. Then there's actually the other theory from Alex Jacobson that it's the old resurrected Echelon 4 AI, which would kind of make a little more sense from Tracer Tong's perspective, that the trace signals are coming from all these continents at once.
Tong filled me in. So we have to dig up Stanton Dowd?
Yeah, you know him?
I heard a few things. I think Harley Philbin knows how to contact him. I always thought Philbin was pulling my leg about the Illuminati, though.
I guess we'll find out when we get to New York. Let's not waste any time.
So Harvey Philbin is that UNATCO informant that we have previously talked to before. He kind of dresses as a bum to get all this information. But at this point, I do want to apologize. This is probably the longest area in the game, Hong Kong. And so this is a little longer than I usually make my videos. But I appreciate everybody for watching, and I hope this is really helpful as far as the backstory and some of those intricate details as we kind of figure out what in the world is going on in this game. So we are here back in New York, and we're going to go ahead and find Stanton Dowd in the next episode. Once again, I appreciate everyone for watching, and I hope this was helpful and entertaining.